An offseason can't strictly be judged by which players you bring in. You also have to factor in which players are going out. And for the San Francisco Giants, tonight we learned that Joc Pederson signing with the Arizona Diamondbacks. And so we're going to take a step back and look at departing Giants and what does the kind of net look like for the Giants with players who are leaving versus the players they've brought in.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide episodes 3 days a week for now. Back to 5 when pitchers and catchers report, which is coming up very soon, actually. I mean, it's 3 weeks from today, I think, that we'll be back to 5 days a week. Talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015. Almost 10 years, and I'm a lifelong fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Check us out there if you have not already. Please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And where we get started, I'm inspired tonight by the news that Joc Pederson is going to sign with the Arizona Diamondbacks. So it's a 1-year deal with a mutual option for 2025. He is guaranteed $12.5 million, and he'll be paid $9.5 million in 2024. And then there's a $3 million buyout on a $14 million mutual option. And so these mutual option things, they almost never get exercised because one party or the other, like if he has a great season, Pederson opts out. And if he has a bad season, the D-backs opt out. And so for the chances for them to like both agree basically that he's worth exactly $14 million next year, it would just take, a special kind of fortune for that to happen. But regardless, like it just got me thinking about, the off season is not just the players you bring in. You also have to consider, of course, the players who depart. And I think that's something I haven't done a good enough job of doing, like talking in the past. Like sometimes people have pointed out, and like it made me a little introspective to think about the truth of it, which is that like when I've put out Giants like spending on Twitter, where I'm very active at Ben Kaspick. You can see it on here on YouTube, my handle there. But like you could spend $200 million every offseason if every deal is a 1-year deal. That's not realistic because you've got players who are non-free agent types, and of course you're not going to sign every single player on your roster to a 1-year deal. But just in terms of spending, you have to also account for who left, right? And so that's part of the equation. Like just to say they spent this much money this offseason, you have to say, okay, well, who did they not spend on? Like what players were they paying last year? Anyway, so not only is it about money, but it's also about the talent. And you got to use that information to determine did your team get better or worse? And I want to hesitate right here just momentarily because I feel like there's probably a tendency at this point, given that we are 3 weeks-ish away from the start of spring training, like pitchers and catchers reporting, that the offseason is over and that the Giants aren't going to do anything else. I continue to think that there's no reason to think that, and this is like a crazy thing that they're like somebody, I think it was Codify, which is a program that players kind of use and pay for. When I say program, I mean it's like I don't know, whatever. They're like a baseball helping professional baseball helping company, and they tweeted out basically that last year, as of like 2 weeks ago, at that date, there were like 3 top 50 MLB trade rumors free agents left on the board. Jurickson, Profar, and a couple other random names I can't even remember. And this year there was like 15 or more, like 20. Like, it's just crazy. There are a lot of good players left. So we can't say like for certain, like, this is who the Giants brought in, this is who they lost, and that's that. I don't think the offseason is over. I think, all of the top 4 remaining guys, Snell, Chapman, Bellinger, Montgomery, all make varying degrees of sense for the Giants. And hey, why not a couple of them, Why not Snell and a position player, So, hey, we'll see. I think they're motivated to be better, and I think they've gotten better when we see the net here. But let's just dive into who have they lost, because others have asked about this as well. So when we search by previous team and select Giants, we're going to find a group of players. So I'm going to sort by total salary kind of commanded. These are players that were on the Giants in 2023 who have secured deals elsewhere. So the player who has secured the most money is Sean Manaea, who got a 2-year, $28 million deal with the New York Mets. I actually cannot remember if he can opt out after the first year. I feel like he can, which just goes to show you it's not just the Giants who, they don't just like give these out like candy for no reason. They give them out, can opt out after 2024, and there's no innings limit on that. He can just opt out after 2024 because the players want that. So anyway, there's an example. David Stearns, smart GM over there, president of baseball operations in New York, he also has to give an opt-out to get Sean Manaea on a 2-year, $28 million deal. For the Giants, it was 2 years, $25 million. So it's like basically the same deal with inflation, I guess. So anyway, there's your number 1 so far signed player away from the Giants. And he was good down the stretch, but I don't, when I say down the stretch, I really mean like he was really bad to start the season, and then he was just really good for the last several months. So it is a loss, but it's not like, okay, you lost Logan Webb in free agency or something, right? It's just, more like Drew Pomeranz or something back in the day. Throwback, little throwback for you if you were paying attention in 2019. Anyway, now the next biggest contract secured by a Giant a player who was on the Giants last year goes to Joc Pederson at $12.5 million guaranteed. Is that what I said? $12.5 million guaranteed? Yes. $12.5 million guaranteed for Joc Pederson, and only 1 year guaranteed as well. And so Sean Manaea, the only guy to get a guaranteed multi-year deal, and it's 2 years with an opt-out. And so, yes, Joc Pederson, we're going to see a lot of him on the Arizona Diamondbacks. It makes a lot of sense. It's a good fit for him, good fit for Arizona. Promise you he'll be platooned just like he was here. Another thing to watch for, it's not just the Giants platooning guys, it's the Giants platooning guys who are platoon players also being overly reliant on platoons. Yes, overly invested in platoons, I should say. So following up on that is a bunch of nobodies kind of, I hate to say it, but okay, John Brebbia, love the guy. Hilarious, was pretty good. So he's not a nobody, but 1 year, $5.5 million from the White Sox. Paul DeYoung, remember, he was on the Giants for a hot second. $1.75 million from the White Sox. Joe Ross, who didn't even play in the major leagues. He wasn't even on the 40-man roster last year, and he gets a 1 year, $1.75 million contract from the Milwaukee Brewers. Roberto Perez, remember, he blew out his arm a few days into the season, gets a minor league deal with the Red Sox. And then remaining free agents who are unsigned include Jacob Junis, Scott Alexander, Alex Wood, AJ Pollock, and Brandon Crawford. So there's just not a lot there. That's what I'm saying. It's like this isn't an offseason where you lost a Kevin Gausman or something like that. There's just not a lot here in terms of what they're losing. And so we're going to look at what did they gain and figure out what is the kind of net at the end of it. And then I want to look at some pitching projections as well. So all of that coming up in just a minute. And before we get into it, today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is wrapping up, hopefully not for your San Francisco 49ers, who obviously have a big, very big game coming up this Sunday. Football's running out of time, though, no matter how you look at it. But there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. So jumping over to the odds for this game for the 49ers, they're favorites at -360. The spread is -7 in favor of the 49ers. And the over-under set at 51.5. So win or lose, if you place a $5 bet at FanDuel.com/lockedon, you get $150 in bonus bets. So make your first bet a layup at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, here we go. We're going to get into like the incoming players and the net there. And I also want to talk about pitching projections, because yesterday we talked about hitting projections, and that's where we kind of start, because we talked about Jung Hoo Lee a lot. Like he was our first segment of the show yesterday, like just talking about, breaking down his projections and how we're looking many projections deep here. We're not just like, Pacoda said this, and that's not, as much as I love like statistics and stuff, I'm not all about that. Like there's certain ones I trust more than others for, based on history, and the more the better, and that's one of the best projection system to my knowledge is the one that averages like a ton of different projection systems. So anyway, we'll get into that as well. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, so the players the Giants have brought in to this point, again, I'm not going to act like the offseason is over. I truly think the Giants end up with at least one of those four guys. So is that a hot take? I don't know. Will you have receipts on me if and when it doesn't happen? Yes, you will. But, they're not out here. Sometimes, the previous regime, they'd be out there saying, yeah, we're done. Like the move, we're done. Let's focus on the players we have and not the players we don't have, and that current regime says that too. So anyway, let's look at signing team. And we're also going to account for trades, which actually I didn't account for outgoing players via trade, but we'll get into that when we discuss, what am I trying to say? We'll get into it when we discuss the incoming players via trade. Okay, so first of all, Jung Hoo Lee. He gets a 6-year, $113 million contract. So again, the biggest deal that an outgoing player got so far, and none of those guys who are unsigned are going to get more than a 1 year. I mean, Alex Wood might get a 2-year deal, maybe, but there's not a lot there, like I said. And so Jung Hoo Lee, $113 million plus the posting fee, which is like another $19 million. So it comes out to $132 million over 6 years guaranteed for Lee. Can opt out after 4. Jordan Hicks, 4 years, $44 million. No opt-outs, just straight 4-year deal, converting him to a starting pitcher. And that's super interesting. The guy throws 105-mile-an-hour sinkers. And so, I mean, very least, he becomes an elite bullpen arm for you. You would think. You never know. Injuries happen. People, excuse me, I banged into my computer stand there. But anyway, like both of those deals so far, and they far exceed the totals of any. And this is the market. The prices are the market. Players are worth what a team is willing to pay them, and so clearly, so far, we're seeing a trend here that the incoming outweighs the outgoing. So then we get to Tom Murphy, who gets an $8.25 million 2-year deal with a club option for a 3rd year. And so that guy could be here for 3 years, on this contract. And he's like a lefty mashing catcher who pairs really nicely with Patrick Bailey. And so I like that signing too, because I've pretty fully lost confidence in Joey Bart. It's still going to be interesting to see what happens with Joey Bart, because he's out of minor league options. So he has to be on the major league team, but there's really not a spot for him. So I would anticipate he gets traded at some point, and I wish him the best. If you've been following the show, if you've been an everydayer for years, I've not believed in him for quite some time for various reasons. And so that's it. Those are the Giants' incoming free agents. Jung Hoo Lee. I mean, and again, if we wanted to add up the money, it would come out to a big net gain in expenditures. And, we also got to look at the trade, though. There was a trade, and I'm going to have to break this one down kind of by memory because it's not on this transaction tracker that I'm looking at. But they bring in Robbie Ray, right, from Seattle. And in that deal, they trade Anthony DeSclafani and Mitch Haniger. And so the Robbie Ray is owed $23 million in 2024. And the Giants kicked in an extra $6 million to make it cash neutral. How is that possible? 23? Because that doesn't make sense with Haniger plus DeSclafani plus $6 million equaling 23. For some reason, I'm not remembering how that made sense. It always made sense to me until this exact moment, so I must be forgetting something. But the Giants paid extra to make it was 20. They made it 29 million. Oh, that's what excuse me. Haniger and DeSclafani add up to 29 million, and Ray's only making 23 million, and so the $6 extra million covers the extra cost for the Mariners. And so those who want to call the Giants cheap or whatever, they're paying $6 million extra just to make this trade happen. And I see very little downside in this trade. I mean, the downside is the downside of any deal for a pitcher, is that, okay, Robbie Ray gets hurt and then you're stuck with him for, we know he's going to miss the first half of this season, and then there's 2 years, $50 million left on that deal afterwards because he can opt out after 2024. And so you might say it's a lose-lose. I disagree strongly, because if he opts out, yeah, it's a loss. I mean, it's not totally a loss, because if he opts out, it means he pitched really well. It means he came back and pitched really well. And also, it's not a loss because I think most Giants fans would agree they wanted Mitch Haniger. They would, if they could have the team redo it, they would not have signed Mitch Haniger to a 3-year contract last offseason. And if Robbie Ray opts out, Haniger also has an opt-out. And if he has another poor season like he had this year, which the Mariners are obviously hoping he won't, but if he does, they're stuck with his contract for $15.5, I think, million it is for 2025. And he's going to be like 34, 35 years old at that point. And so, I don't know. You got rid of a couple players that you didn't really want anyway, and you got a guy who has recently won a Cy Young Award. Obviously, there's some risk, but there's risk in everything in life. And so, I don't know. I just don't really. I think, basically the net. I mean, Haniger and DeSclafani, these were players who were not popular among fans. Robbie Ray has the potential to be really good, and they got him for two guys that nobody wanted on the team. Okay, so overall, I just think the net is most definitely a positive so far, but they need more than this, in my opinion. Like, I think that they've improved their team over last year pretty significantly. I mean, not like, enormously, but, if Jung Hoo Lee performs the way that some of the projections we talked about yesterday, and if you want to hear all about that, just check out yesterday's episode when we went through hitter projections for the Giants, then this, then they've improved a lot, but I still think they need to do more. And whether it's just one of those four guys, whether it's a significant trade, whatever the case may be, Snell, even Matt Chapman, who I just, the platinum defense, I do see them picking somebody up here at some point. And it's not like, oh, the Giants are just twiddling their thumbs. There's a reason these guys haven't signed, right? Their asking prices are high, clearly. And they're all Scott Boras clients, and that's not a coincidence. And at some point, they're going to sign. And when they do, the Giants are up there with anybody in terms of who could they sign with, in my opinion. Chapman makes a lot of sense. Snell makes a lot of sense. Bellinger makes less sense. Montgomery makes some sense, but for some reason, I don't think he's like a West Coast kind of guy, is kind of the vibe I get from Montgomery. But Snell, he's from Seattle area, and Chapman, a lot of familiarity with Farhan Zaidi and Bob Melvin and the Bay Area. And so there's just there's a lot of sense in Chapman and Snell. Hey, go get both of them. How about that? I think that would make people happy, and it would kind of push them over the top in a sense of like they had a really good offseason. It would make their offseason really good if they could get both of those guys. I'm just kind of dreaming here a little bit, but I can just see somebody commenting, yeah, you are dreaming. But hey, I'm an optimist, and we'll see. Nobody knows anything until we know. And right now we don't know. So we'll see. Anyway, coming up in just a minute, we are going to get into those pitching projections. I promise we obviously won't be able to talk about everyone. But, what do they look like in general? And where's Logan Webb ranking? What are they expecting out of Robbie Ray when he comes back? Stuff like that. We will get into it momentarily. And before we do, all right, as promised, pitching projections for the San Francisco Giants. I just thought, kind of following up on yesterday when we discussed hitters, it would be relevant, of course, to discuss the projections for the pitchers. And one of the first things that stands out, what we know is that their pitching mix is interesting because you've got your Logan Webb horse at the top, and then you've got a lot of youth, but a lot of youth with upside. And then you've got some injured guys like Cobb and Robbie Ray, who are like pretty good, but injured and going to miss significant time. And then you've got, your Ross Stripling, but Manaea opted out and you traded DeSclafani. So 2/3 of that kind of that tier of pitcher that they had that was kind of like back end starter, kind of like not good enough to even stick in the rotation, so they're pitching out of the bullpen a lot, goes away, except Alex Wood. He's a free agent. Did I mention him already? Well, I don't think, did I? I don't know, but Alex, a lot of these guys conned the Giants, it seems. They had really good 2021s. Giants brought them back, and they just had very not good 2022s and 2023s. But the only guy now that they're really, stuck with is Ross Stripling for one season, and he's got a track record of being pretty good. But anyway, Logan Webb, across the board, projected to be just one of the best pitchers in baseball. Okay, he finished second in National League Cy Young Award voting. Somehow the dude wasn't an all-star, which ticks me off to no end because it's just unfair. And it happens year after year. Carlos Rodon initially wasn't an all-star 2 years ago when he was just shoving. Like, they just snub Giants players consistently, and it ticks me off. Logan Webb's one of the best pitchers in the game, and somehow he's never made an all-star team. 3 years now, he's been one of the best pitchers in the game. So, hey, hopefully this is the year. But ATC, which is that projection system that I said averages a bunch of other projection systems, including the others that we're about to look at. So that does skew the data a little bit. But it doesn't just average those two, it's others as well. But 3.43 earned run average for Webb is the projection, with 4.6 wins above replacement. And I'm just going to jump ahead to Zips and say what Dan Szymborski wrote. Dan Szymborski, of course, the creator of Zips. He said, with the pitching, he said, the problem with the hitters is similar to the pitchers on the Giants in that they're acceptable everywhere and disastrous nowhere, but they don't have a great deal of high-end upside. So let me just take a step back and say, yes, that's exactly what sums up the Giants, is that they're acceptable everywhere, disastrous nowhere, but don't have a great deal of high-end upside. That's why, hence the search for a star, right? But then here's what he says next. But I can't deny that Logan Webb is the exception here. He has the highest Zips WAR projection of any pitcher in baseball. He's certainly not the flashiest pitcher, and he'll never spike huge strikeout rates, but his sinker and changeup are so cruel and his command so good that he doesn't need to be a whiff god to be one of the most dominating, consistent pitchers in the majors. Boom. There you have it. That is some love for Logan Webb. The highest Zips WAR projection of any pitcher in baseball, okay? And that has to do also with innings pitched, right? It's like he's good and he throws a lot of innings. He led the majors in innings last year. So anyway, there's Zips, and that number, by the way, let's find what it even was. The WAR projection for Logan Webb is it's always so hard to find. I can't even find 4.4. So nobody else higher than that, according to Zips. And ATC had him at 4.6, and Steamer has him at 4.1. So this is all-star, 4+, and you're talking all-star pitcher. And I don't think that should come as any surprise. But, Alex Cobb has some nice projections, 3.80, 3.70, and Zips. What does Zips have to say about Alex Cobb? 3.84. So, anything under 4 these days, pretty solid. But projected to, he's going to miss time. Kyle Harrison, 4.08 according to ATC. That's pretty solid for a 21-year-old rookie, right? 22 and a half, excuse me. 4.08 ERA projection for ATC. 4.14 for Steamer, and Zips has him at 4.23. And so that is those are solid. It wouldn't make you thrilled to see that, but that would be a solid step in the right direction for a very young pitcher. And I think he does have that kind of upside where he could vastly exceed this if he figures things out. So looking at just some other, Jordan Hicks, per ATC, 12 starts, 43 games, ERA 3.72 is the projection. And for Steamer, Jordan Hicks, 15 starts, 53 games, 3.62 ERA. And Zips came out earlier and was only projecting him as a reliever. And so we're not going to look at that one for him. Camilo Doval, 3.31 ERA projection per Steamer. Camilo Doval per ATC, 3.23 ERA. So they literally have one of the best pitchers in the game, one of the best starters in Logan Webb, and one of the best closers in Camilo Doval. And so that's great. I mean, it's a good foundation. One of the best catchers maybe in Patrick Bailey, depending on how he hits. How about Robbie Ray finally? Robbie Ray with a 3.99 ERA projection per ATC, only in 51 and a third innings, 3.99 ERA. According to steamer. Robbie Ray with a 3.99. It's crazy when they're the same. ERA, only 34 innings projected for Robbie Ray. And I'm going to assume that Ray is not even on here for Zips because they come out earlier. So I'm going to have to go quickly to the Mariners Zips projections to find what does Zips have to say about Robbie Ray. And what does Zips have to say about Robbie Ray is that he will have a 3.93 ERA. So what was it? 3.99, 3.99, and 3.93. 3.99. Was it 3.99 two in a row? Yeah, 3.99, 3.99, 3.93. So again, like I said it before I saw the numbers. Anything under 4 you'll take. And he probably wouldn't opt out at that number. And then you've got, further removed from Tommy John surgery, Robbie Ray potentially for a 2-year, $50 million deal. Plus the savings on Haniger. So it's like minus $15.5 million that they would have otherwise owed Haniger in 2025. You have to account for that as well. So anyway, all of that said, does this team need pitching more or hitting more? Now that I've kind of talked about the hitting projections, the pitching projections. Obviously, we didn't go through all of them, just kind of the standout guys. I'd like to have had more time. Actually, we've got tomorrow. I want to look more at some of the less major names and kind of some of the other young players, especially. Like, are there any guys that really stand out here? And to me, they need hitting more. And by hitting, yes, hitting, but also I mean like position players. And we also read the tea leaves, and it's not really tea leaves. You got Farhan Zaidi when they're introducing Jordan Hicks talking about how their priority is to make a move that improves the infield defense. And so that just screams Matt Chapman to me. And so, hey, maybe I have had 2 Friday. I have an appointment I can't miss every Friday. And the Jordan Hicks deal and the Robbie Ray trade both happen on Fridays, right before that appointment. And so, hey, maybe tomorrow, right before my appointment, they'll sign Matt Chapman. Bold prediction there. So anyway, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day, everydayers. Tomorrow, more about this, we got mailbag questions, and also, hey, maybe talking about Matt Chapman. I don't know. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever 24/7 national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot. So thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.